So, you've probably heard this term digital pedagogy thrown around a lot, right? Especially since, well, everything went online in a big way. But what does it actually mean? Is it just about handing out laptops in class? Well, the real answer is way more interesting than that. And honestly, it's pretty key to the future of learning. So let's get into it and break it down. This quote from Paul Fife just hits the nail on the head, so to speak. It perfectly captures the core problem. I mean, we've all seen it happen. A school gets a bunch of shiny new tablets, and suddenly every single lesson becomes a tablet lesson, whether it makes any sense or not. That's a classic case of treating every problem like a nail just because you have a new hammer. Digital pedagogy is about knowing when to use the hammer, when to use a screwdriver, and why. It's about the how and the why, not just the what. Which brings us to a place I am sure we have all visited. Oh yes, the dreaded land of death by PowerPoint. Come on, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're sitting there, staring at slide after slide, just crammed with tiny text, and the presenter is just reading it word for word. That is the perfect example of using technology without any real teaching strategy behind it. The tool is there, sure, but it's actually making it harder to learn, not easier. So here's the big takeaway. Digital pedagogy isn't about using digital tools for the sake of it. It's the actual study of how to teach effectively with them. It means you're making a fundamental shift in your thinking. You're focusing on the teaching method and the actual learning experience, not just plugging in the latest gadget you can find. But as you can probably imagine, not everyone is on the same page about how big a role technology should play in the classroom. It's a pretty heated debate with some really strong opinions on both sides. So on one side, you have the advocates. They argue that these digital tools are amazing. They open up entirely new ways of understanding the world and are absolutely essential for getting students ready for the future. But then, on the other side, you have the skeptics. They're quick to point out that, a lot of the big promises of tech just don't really pan out. It's not some magic bullet that's going to fix all of education's deepest problems. And wow, did this debate get thrown into the spotlight for the entire world during the COVID-19 pandemic. All of a sudden, basically everyone, teachers, students, parents, we were all thrown into this massive, messy, unplanned experiment in remote learning. And it showed us everything, the incredible potential of these tools, but also the huge pitfalls of relying on technology for education. This whole conversation isn't really new. We've actually been through a few different eras of educational tech. It started with just kind of putting old media onto new screens, then we moved to e-learning and online courses, and then to social learning with Web 2.0. The most important thing to see here is the trend. We're slowly but surely shifting from just using the technology to thinking really critically about how we teach with it. And that, right there, is the rise of digital pedagogy. So with all that history and the debate that's still going on, how in the world can an educator figure all this out? Well, thankfully, there's a really powerful framework that can help. It's called TPACK. So yeah, how do we finally get it right? How do we stop just seeing technology as that shiny new hammer and instead start using it with the skill and precision of a master craftsperson? The answer, it turns out, is in understanding three different but deeply connected areas of knowledge. Okay, so it all comes down to these three pillars. First up is technological knowledge. That's the T. It's basically knowing your tools, whether it's as simple as a blackboard or as complex as an AI. Second, you've got pedagogical knowledge, the P. This is the art and science of teaching itself. And third, there's content knowledge, the C. And that's just what it sounds like, knowing your subject inside and out. But here's the thing, and this is the really crucial part. Just having these three skills on their own isn't enough. You can be a total tech wizard, a brilliant teacher, and an expert in your field, but the real magic, the good stuff, happens where those three domains overlap. So let's look at what happens when these circles overlap. Where pedagogy and content meet, you get PCK. That's knowing the best ways to teach, say, history versus math. Where technology and content meet, you get TCK. That's knowing how a digital simulation could perfectly demonstrate a concept in physics. And where technology and pedagogy meet, you get TPK. Knowing how to use something like a digital poll to get a great classroom discussion going. But the sweet spot, the bullseye right in the middle, is TPACK. That's the beautiful synthesis of all three, where a teacher knows exactly how to use the right technology to teach specific content in the most effective way possible. Okay, so that's the theory behind it. But how does an actual teacher put all of this into practice? Well, lucky for us, there's a framework for that too. This is it, the Design and Enactment Framework for Digital Pedagogy. Now, I know it looks a little complicated, so don't worry about reading every single box right now. The most important thing to see is the flow. It shows how a teacher's own beliefs and skills, over on the left, directly influence how they design the learning environment in the middle, which then leads to the student outcomes on the right. It's basically a complete roadmap from start to finish. So let's break it down real quick. It all starts with the teacher's own orientation. What are their beliefs? What are their skills? From there, they use all that TPAC knowledge we just talked about to design the entire learning environment, the tasks, the tools, everything. Next, they think ahead about what they expect to see in the classroom. What will the students actually be doing? What are they going to create? And finally, all of this work is aimed at hitting specific learning goals, and not just memorizing facts, but social and emotional goals too. So this framework gives us a really solid foundation to build on. But as we all know, technology, well, it never stands still. So what's coming up next on the horizon? And no surprise here, the next huge wave that's about to crash on the shore is artificial intelligence. AI is already beginning to make its way into our schools and universities, and it's bringing a whole new set of opportunities and challenges that will force us to apply these exact principles of digital pedagogy in brand new and creative ways. And that leaves us with one final, and I think really crucial question. As these incredibly powerful new tools become part of our everyday lives, how do we make absolutely sure we're not just grabbing the newest, shiniest hammer? How do we guarantee that our human understanding of teaching and learning, our pedagogy, is always in the driver's seat? That's the big challenge ahead.